What if I told you that you could achieve way more, maybe even twice as much, by doing half the work? No, I'm serious. We're about to dig into this amazing principle that just completely turns what we think about work upside down. It shows us that the real secret to getting huge results isn't about doing more. It's about focusing on way, way less.
You know that feeling, right? You finish a crazy long day, you're totally exhausted, and you look back and think, what did I actually get done today? Yeah, that feeling of being super busy but not actually productive, it's something we all struggle with. Well, we're going to get right to the bottom of why that happens, and more importantly, how to fix it.
So the whole idea here is to really challenge that hustle culture myth. You know the one. We've been taught forever that more hours, more sweat, more grinding, that's the only path to success. But what if that's not just wrong? What if that's the very thing that's actually holding you back?
And that leads us perfectly into what's called the overwork illusion. Is this really dangerous belief that just because we're busy, just because we're doing stuff, we're actually making progress? It's a total trap, and it's what keeps so many of us just spinning our wheels and heading straight for burnout.
Okay, so here's the tough pill to swallow. A huge chunk of what we do every day. You know, all those emails we answer, the meetings we sit in, the little tasks we check off. Most of it adds up to, well, almost nothing when it comes to the results that really matter. But, look, realizing that isn't about feeling like a failure. It's actually the first step toward a massive breakthrough.
So, how do we break out of that cycle? Well, we do it by unlocking this incredibly powerful way of thinking that's been around forever, the 80-20 principle.
You might have also heard it called the Pareto principle. It's named after this Italian economist, Vilfredo Pareto, from way back. And the story goes, he was out in his garden one day and he noticed something weird. About 20% of his pea pods were producing 80% of all his peas. So, being an economist, he got curious and started looking around. He checked out the wealth distribution in Italy and boom, same pattern. 20% of the people owned 80% of the land. And that's when he realized this imbalance wasn't just a fluke. It was a predictable pattern, like almost baked into how the world works.
Think about it in business, right? We tend to assume all our customers are pretty much equal, or that every single task on our to-do list has the same importance. But it's just not true, is it? The reality is, a very small number of your clients are probably bringing in most of your money. It's proof that some inputs are just, they're exponentially more powerful than others.
And look, this is not just some dusty old business theory. An author named Perry Marshall calls it a fundamental law of nature. And he's right, because once you get this framework in your head, you start to see this crazy imbalance absolutely everywhere.
So, for example, take this story from one of Marshall's seminars. He asked a room of 80 people a simple question. How many pairs of shoes do you own? Now, you'd think the answers would be spread out pretty evenly, right? Nope, not even close. One woman in the room owned over 64 pairs, while most other people only had a handful. It's such a perfect everyday example of this hidden rule in action.
But wait, because it gets even crazier. Next, he asked that same room, which was full of marketers, about something else. How many internet domain names they each owned.
So, out of all 80 of these marketing pros, how many people do you think owned most of the domain names? Was it a group? A handful? Nope. It was just one.
That's right. A single person, one guy, owned more than 12,000 domains. That was nearly half of all the domains in the entire room combined. I mean, that's the 80-20 principle on steroids. And it just goes to show you how completely lopsided reality actually is. All right, so understanding this principle is one thing. That's the aha moment. But actually using it, well, that's where the real magic happens. It's all about finding and then laser focusing on your critical few.
So how do you actually do it? Well, it's a pretty simple three-step process. First, you have to identify your top 20%. Really pinpoint them. Which customers, which products, which daily activities are generating 80% of your value. Second, you focus all your best resources on them. Double down. Give them your best energy. And third, and this one's honestly the toughest, you have to eliminate or at least drastically cut back on everything else.
Now, I know this idea of just eliminating things can sound pretty extreme, but take author Tim Ferriss. He famously used this principle and realized that just a handful of his customers, the really high-maintenance, low-profit ones, were eating up almost all of his time. So what did he do? He fired them. And that one move completely freed him up to grow his business in ways he never could have before.
Okay, it's important to have a little perspective here. While the 80-20 rule is an unbelievably powerful tool for getting you to focus, it's a mental model. It's not a magic wand that's going to solve every single one of your problems.
The real strength of it is its simplicity. It just forces you to find the few things that are truly making the biggest difference. Now, sure, critics will point out that the numbers are almost never a perfect 80-20. Sometimes it's more like 95-5, or maybe 70-30. But honestly, getting hung up on the exact numbers completely misses the point. The numbers themselves don't matter. What matters is just recognizing that this huge imbalance between your effort and your results is real.
All right, let's bring this all home and make it super practical for you. What's the very first 80-20 move that you can make, like today?
Just remember, this isn't about a small tweak. It's a fundamental shift in how you think. The goal is not to cram more stuff into your day anymore. The goal is to create a massive impact by being absolutely ruthless about doing less, but making sure it's the right less.
And you know, one of the most powerful ways to get started with this is to create a not-to-do list. Seriously, forget your to-do list for a second. Think about what you are going to actively stop doing. What are those little time-wasting tasks you can just cut out? Which meetings can you say no to? What low-value work can you finally refuse to do?
So I'm going to leave you with that one challenge. Just take a look at your week ahead. What is the one single low-impact thing that you're going to eliminate to make space and energy for what actually counts? What's the very first thing that's going on your not-to-do list?